The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
One day at a time with its failures and fears, with portion of pain and burden of care, we must meet.
Welcome to Walking Through the Language of the Heart, a journey into the Grapevine writings of Alcoholics Anonymous co-founder Bill W. And now, here are your co-hosts, Chris S. and the Monty'man.
That's right, my friends. You have tuned into the amazing, the wonderful, the incredible. Well, I don't know about all that, but it's certainly the interesting workshop entitled "Walking Through the Language of the Heart" with our good friend Chris S. and myself. And Chris, we're hit the number 40 mark, episode 40.
Wow, and we're only in 1955.
I know. What are we doing in 1955?
Alcoholics Anonymous is about 20 years old or so at this period of time. Bill is still heavy into developing the structure and the processes and the traditions, the traditional way of operating. He's getting more and more deeply into the larger service questions. How do all the groups interact with the New York Central Office, and it's a really interesting time in Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, the title of this particular essay is "The Significance of St. Louis." I have no idea because you and I don't read these before we did. What does St. Louis have to do with anything? Well, I guess we're just gonna have to start
find out.
reading and figure it out.
All righty.
Come next summer, it will be 20 years since I first set eyes on Dr. Bob. 20 years since the spark that was to be Alcoholics Anonymous was struck and AA's Akron Group Number 1 took form and substance. This July, we are having our 1955 anniversary in St. Louis. All of us who can get there, maybe 10,000, maybe 20, and all who can't be there will surely be present in spirit and will be bound to share those meaningful and stirring hours with us as they read the reports. So if you look at these world conventions, right? This is the one 1955 St. Louis. When you look at the percentage of AA membership that would go to these, it was pretty high compared to today.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the same kind of percentage of members at an international, but we still get a lot of people.
Sure.
Monty, you've been to some of the internationals.
Yes, I have.
What was your impression of that experience?
It was overwhelming. It was. I was in the South Bay in the San Jose area. For one, I was in at the one in San Antonio, Texas. The one in San Antonio, Texas blew my mind because we went up in this Space Needle kind of thing and was able to overlook the city. And I am not exaggerating when I say you cannot see where the sidewalk ended and the street began on any block. That's how covered in people it was. And the city of San Antonio declared it was the largest convention of people that they had ever had in their history of San Antonio. And that was, what year was that? 2000, maybe some. I can't remember the year, but it was a number of years back. And on top of that, it was like 107, and it was raining, and that did not slow it down one bit.
Wow. Did they have a number on how many people were there?
I don't remember. I know that they could not fit everybody into the main sports arena.
I know they've underestimated some things in some of the conventions.
Yeah.
And been overwhelmed with transportation challenges or whatever. But I can remember sitting way up in a stadium and listening to an AA speaker. It was Tom I was the speaker. This was Toronto, right? And then the Lord's Prayer was when you hear like 80,000 people saying the Lord's Prayer together, that's a significant experience. I've got to tell you.
It's hard to choose whether you want to participate in it or just listen to it. You know what I mean? Because it's so powerful.
Yeah. And the fun thing I've found with conventions like this is I bump into people that I've fellowshipped with over the years, and they've just disappeared. Listen, people move, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times, just somebody from the group is gone, and maybe you think about it a couple of times, but you move on, and over the course of time, you kind of and all of a sudden you'll see them, and you haven't seen them in 10 years because they've moved across the country, but they're at the convention.
Yeah.
That happened to me countless times, and it was really something being able to say, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah, right.
I guess you moved.
Yeah. That's happened to me. In fact, there's a gentleman at the last convention, which was quite a bit smaller, the Rogue River Roundup I told you about, where I met a gentleman, Jason, a gentleman by the name of Otto. Now, Otto is not a very common name, right? So when somebody said, "Hey, did you know Otto's here?" Everybody knows who you're talking about. And the guy, he's got like 160,000 years of sobriety, and you wonder how he's still moving around, but he is, and he shows up. It doesn't seem to matter where you are, Otto pops up.
I know an individual with that same name. I'll tell a quick story. Down in Charlotte with our friend Peter M. Right, and we're doing a workshop down there, and we had to get picked up really early to get to the airport. So it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. We get picked up.
Yeah.
And he's picking us up, and picture a hotel complex, and then there's a road with like 3 lanes, there's a median, and then there's the other 3 lanes going the other direction, like and you can drive right out onto it from the hotel. Well, the individual is so busy talking to me and Peter, he's so excited to be talking to me and Peter, that he goes the wrong way on this highway.
Oh no.
And it's 5 in the morning, and we're driving down the road, and I'm sitting in the back, and Peter's in the passenger seat, and I see these headlights coming at us. and I'm like, I think you made some kind of mistake. I think you went the wrong way. And with these cars, these cars are honking at us and stuff. We're going the wrong way up a highway. It's just typical.
Geez.
Usually you have to be drinking to do that.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? This was a sober wrong way up the highway, which are much more unusual than the drunken ones, I believe.
So you told a story, so I got to tell you one too. I may have told you this before, but I was at the Narcotics Anonymous World Convention in San Diego years ago, and I had lost my dentures, couldn't find them anywhere, and I used to have this bad habit because they didn't fit real well of putting them in my pocket. Well, they had fallen out. Well, somebody in our contingent of people, unbeknownst to me, had gone to the chairperson for one of the main gatherings right, and told them about it. And they announced there was like 65,000 people in this auditorium. They announced from the stage, before we start this morning's meeting, there is a set of dentures out there that belong to Monty M. Monty M, are you out there?
Oh,
And
no.
I'm like, and so I'm walking up there. Thinking, this is Monty M. If you see his dentures, I want to crawl into a hole. Oh my gosh.
That is bizarre.
I know, but that's how much we care, right?
Yeah. You don't want somebody going without their teeth. Oh, man.
Never found him on that trip.
St. Louis isn't going to be just another anniversary for a very potent reason, and there can never be, in all our history to come, another such occasion as this. As at all anniversaries of the past, we shall thank God for our deliverance out of bondage. We shall pay grateful tribute to those near and dear who sat through the dark night of the soul with us. We shall gratefully recall those friends in the world outside whose ideas, goodwill, and labor without stint have done so much to make AA what it is today. We shall cry out our greetings to each other with a warmth seldom known anywhere. We shall exchange experiences, confess that our society has its faults, and ask God to show us how to remove them. We shall ponder the meaning of our short but exciting history, and in confident faith we shall accept whatever destiny Providence has in store for us. All these things we shall do in St. Louis. Wow, that is really a cool paragraph.
Yeah.
Bill has a way of writing.
Doesn't he?
Lofty at times, and his choice of adjectives and verbs are unusual. I don't know anybody that writes like Bill, and he obviously was really excited and really proud that this fellowship was going to be meeting and there was going to be 20,000 people there. I'm not sure how many people ended up in St. Louis, but I know it was big. And again, if you're a historian or you care about these things, you can find the tapes from the talks, the main talks that were given at the 1955 convention. But we are also going to do some things that can never be done again. We are going to affirm that the infancy and adolescence of our society now belongs to its near miraculous and incredible past, that our fellowship has now come of age, that we now propose to take full possession and full responsibility for our inheritance coming from the early years of AA, those vital legacies of recovery, unity, and service. No longer will the unity and functioning of our society depend on its parents, elders, or founders. That will be the unique significance of St. Louis.
Wow.
And again, I mean, this was such a significant event. I believe that the book AA Comes of Age, had a genesis, that history of Alcoholics Anonymous that was that ended up being the book AA Comes of Age. Was named after what Bill is talking about here.
Sure. Yeah.
You guys are going to have to run it now.
Yeah.
Dr. Bob and I are gonna move on one day, and this thing is going to have to continue because they knew that hopeless alcoholics, were getting sober in this fellowship and were recovering, and able to put their lives back together and survive alcoholism, which wasn't a very survivable illness prior to Alcoholics Anonymous.
Well, and he intuitively knew, just as we know individually that we cannot be overly dependent on one person like our sponsor, right? That the fellowship couldn't be dependent on one small group of founders, that it had to become interdependent and had to become God dependent. And we had to have a unity that to this day baffles even governments, right?
whatever destiny providence has in store for us, he's always saying God is in charge,
Yeah.
Monty.
Yeah.
And providence is a word that he uses for God. He uses a lot of words for God.
Right.
Providence is certainly one of them.
Yep.
Uh, this means that all of us, AA as a whole, are now entirely ready to take over full guardianship of the AA traditions that guarantee our unity in times to come, and also to take complete charge of those world services which are the means by which we function as an entire fellowship, and from which radiate our principal lifelines to those millions all over the globe who still need AA. So, so he is always thinking about the still suffering
Mm.
alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, certainly the traditions, but I believe the legacy of service was designed in a way to maximize the connection with as many still sick and suffering alcoholics as possible. Uh, the AA message getting to everyone. Now, and I know that somebody carries the AA message to you doesn't mean you're gonna pick up the big book and join up.
Right.
But Bill wanted that. Bill wanted that opportunity to be available for
Yeah.
alcoholics, and to a degree, I think it's come true. I think any alcoholic who is trying to get treatment or get sober or whatever is going to be exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous some way, whether it's through literature or 12-step calls or whatever. But really, we do kind of blanket the globe now. However effective we are, we
Sure.
we we do have our message out there.
You know, and see what you think of this. I think he also knew that, I mean, you could go to a sanitarium, you could go to a drying out farm, but then what? Right? And until this whole idea of service came about, was there any then what's? I mean, now we have, okay, now this is what you do now that you're healthy. You carry this message. And we talked about it almost in a spiritual kind of way. Most of us, it kind of comes upon us, doesn't it? The desire to carry that message.
It's an organic movement. I mean, you figure out you're being really helpful to a lot of different people before you know you're being helpful.
Yeah.
You've just come out of real self-centered, self-serving
Sure.
ways of living. That's the way it certainly was for me. And what you were talking about earlier, the Oxford group called it continuance. So what is continuance? So okay, you've made the altar call.
Right.
You've given your life to Jesus, or whatever your religious experience is. If there isn't something that helps you continue that experience,
Yeah.
you can lose it. So the same thing with Alcoholics Anonymous. He understood that there was going to have to be some processes in there for continuance, for the broad, growing and developing this spirituality that really is recovery. He knew that we needed to take action for that to happen, and his idea was service.
Sure.
When-
And
Go ahead.
I know a number of people who may still attend AA meetings, but they're not active in the service structure within AA. But I don't know any of them that aren't active in some form of recovery service outside of AA. Maybe they work in the treatment field. Maybe they work in the youth addiction arena. But they're in it. You know what I mean? And far be it from any of us to say that we have the corner on what service is, but they're in service of some kind, and most of them certainly aren't doing it for the money.
I think it's a react. So the book Alcoholics Anonymous says selfishness, self-centeredness is the root of my troubles.
Yeah.
I'm an extreme example of self-will run riot, though I usually don't think so.
Yeah.
Various manifestations of self have defeated me. I mean, there's a ton of language in there like that. I think service is the anti-selfish.
Yes.
So if selfishness really is my problem, service is going to be an incredible
Solution.
solution
Yeah.
for that selfishness. And I don't know about you, but my first sponsor got me busy almost right away with all kinds of stuff I didn't understand why I had to do. Why do I have to do it? Why do I have to do this, Phil? I don't drink coffee. Why do I have to clean the coffee pot? All that kind of stuff.
I asked that question of my sponsor, and he says, because we love it. That's how
I told you to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Maybe this sounds vague, abstract, or visionary, but it really isn't. The basic idea is simple and practical. There comes a time in the life of every family when the parents must say to the sons and daughters alike, "You are grown up. Here is your inheritance. Do with it as you will. We will watch, we will help, but we must no longer decide for you, act for you, and protect you. You are henceforth responsible for your own lives and well-being. So now take your destiny by the hand and may God love you." Everybody knows that a good parent must do this. All parents at some point simply have to let go and let God. That's exactly what the old timers will propose to you at St. Louis. At least that's what I plan to do, as I believe such a decision will be healthy, timely, and right. Monty, a couple months ago, you brought this up about the need to let go of and let someone have their own experience and
Yes.
to be able to mature.
Absolutely. If you don't, you stifle their growth, and you end up being responsible for a lot of their downfall. Yeah, you really do.
Because they become overly reliant, and that's another topic that Bill brings up all the time. We should not be overly reliant. We shouldn't rely on the actions of others to make us happy. We shouldn't. There's a million lessons that you learn. Walking down the spiritual path, and this was really well put.
Well, Chris, so I've got goosebumps right now because it's just amazing how timely these things are. So I told you out the air that our youngest son just informed us they're going to be moving to Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
We have always been only an hour away from any of our kids. So this is the first time we're going to have that much distance. And it kind of hit me hard. Right? It kind of spun me around a little bit. And now we just read this paragraph, of course, as it relates to AA growing up, right? But one more time, the way God works things, he's knocking on my heart. See, you've done your job. It's okay. They're going to be fine. Now, you gotta say, yeah, see you at Christmas.
and the one paragraph that Bill's ever written in his entire life about parents having to let go of children, we get to read it the same week you're experiencing.
I know. Yeah,
right.
There's no God. Nope.
I call those crazy coincidences God hugs. I do.
Oh yeah.
Because if you were a statistician and you put together the statistics on how unusual that would be, given
right.
how many paragraphs Bill's written, given how many weeks in your life, and this is the one, it would be like 50 million to one. And we experience those divine coincidences so often in recovery, and I think it's a little God shove saying I got your back, dude. Don't
Yeah.
Chill.
Yeah. Pray about everything. Worry about nothing.
On the great stage of the St. Louis Auditorium, you will see your elected representatives, the General Service Conference of Alcoholics Anonymous. In the midst of them, you will see AA's trustees and your World Service staff. When the final hour of our convention comes, I shall, on behalf of the old timers, but shucks, here I am spoiling the show. Here's hoping that Lois and I will be seeing you in St. Louis. He's telling him he's going to speak, right? And he's going to turn over the fellowship to everybody. I am no longer going to sit in the catbird seat.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
humility.
Yeah.
I got to tell you.
Yeah.
That's humility.
That is cool. Well, this was a short article this week, and listeners, we're usually about a 55-minute show or more. But we're saving some lengthiness to this for next week because we've got a rather large article next week. We're going to be let me turn the page here. We're going to be cracking.
Yeah, it's like 8 pages.
Like 8 pages. How AA's World Service grew, Part 1. Oh, that means there's going to be a Part 2.
He's going to belabor some stuff, but I'll tell you what, I enjoy the way Bill belabors.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Well, Chris, thank you for another show, and I'm now I've got to go read this part to my wife because our son's coming over for dinner. So, I just love sharing stuff like that. It's so cool. Things that we would be missing if we'd be drinking. You know what I'm saying? What a wonderful
I do.
What a wonderful life. What a wonderful life. All right, my good friend. Thank you so much, listeners. Don't forget to listen to the end of the show here so you can get information on how you can listen to previous episodes of Walking Through the Language of the Heart, along with other workshops that Chris and I have done. All right, until our next broadcast, this is the Monty'man along with Chris S., and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you. For more recovery workshops with Chris S. and the Monty'man, visit our website at take12radio.com and click on the Recovery Workshops banner.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty. Meow, meow, meow.
Woof.